on the run, when their lives have only begun. These could be our daughters and our sons. And just like a drum, I can hear their hearts beating. I know my God won't let them be defeated. Every child has a dream to belong and be loved. Boys become kings, girls will be queens, wrapped in your majesty. When we love the least of these, then they will be brave and free. Shout your name in victory. When we love the least of these, when we love the least of these. Break our hearts once again. Help us to remember when we were only children hoping for a friend. Won't you look around? These are the lives that the world has forgotten, waiting for doors of our hearts and our homes to open. Boys become kings, girls will be queens, wrapped in your majesty. When we love the least of these, at break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name. At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name. At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Good morning. Welcome to the King's Report for Wednesday, January 31st, 2018, 8th year of Chungi, 12th month and 15th day by the heavenly calendar. Tim Miller today with Kyle Toffee, and for the second king of Cheongguk, Hyung Jin Moon, who I guess, as we see on his Instagram photos, appears to have, or maybe about to depart from the Grand Canyon area and to move on, and perhaps in this direction. We will find out more as we go along when he comes into sort of areas where there's a cell phone service. He was able to get internet connection. He was able to post photographs on his Instagram. And so please take a look at those. Also, they're on his Facebook page as well. Let's go right to the weather this morning. It's 14 degrees in the Cheongguk area right now. And looking, it's partly cloudy, and we're looking forward to going up to 31 degrees today, not quite to the freezing point. Sun mixing with clouds. And then tonight, mainly cloudy and 23 degrees. Tomorrow, milder, up to 42 degrees with a little rain in the afternoon. But then tomorrow night into Friday, we're expecting some snow. For a while, they were calling for up to 3 inches, but they seem to have, the forecasters seem to have backtracked on that. They're calling for a little snow in the morning, Friday morning, with a high of 27 degrees, so getting colder again. Let's look at our Rimas for this morning. And the Old Testament, I'm in Habakkuk chapter 1. Habakkuk, the burden which Habakkuk the prophet did see, beginning in verse 1. O Lord, how long shall I cry, and thou wilt not hear, even cry out unto thee of violence, and thou wilt not save? Why dost thou show me iniquity, and cause me to behold grievance? For spoiling and violence are before me, and there are that there are that raise up strife and contention. Therefore the law is slacked, and the judgment doth never go forth. For the wicked doth compass about the righteous. Therefore wrong judgment proceedeth. Before ye among the heathen, and regard and wonder marvelously. For behold ye among the heathen, and regard and wonder marvelously. For I will work a work in your days, which ye shall not believe, though it be told to you. So in the first four verses, well, from verse 2 to verse 4, Habakkuk is basically saying, the prophet is basically complaining to God. They say, you know, why do you just let evil remain? Why do you let the unrighteous remain? How come good people like me can't just take charge, you know? And then in verse 5, God says, well, look what I've already done, and I will work a work in your days which you will not believe. I'll do something during your time that if I were to tell you about it now, you wouldn't believe it. It's so marvelous and wonderful and beyond your imagination.
I think we're really at that time where we will be seeing things that we just can't believe. Actually, even if we reflect on the past year, just like Trump did last night with the State of the Union, so many things have changed.
We'll be covering that State of the Union in detail today. Yes, and but the point I wanted to bring out today is that so often we blame God for the evil around us.
It's true.
You know, how come, you know, I'm good, everybody else is evil. How come you don't kill them all and let me? Why did you create people besides me? But we have to remember that it was by the human portion of responsibility that evil came into the world in the first place, for the failure to fulfill that portion of responsibility. And when I was at the Unification Theological Seminary in Barrytown, the father, of course, brought in professors who were not unificationists. They were of other faiths. And I remember one of them really saying that, you know, Reverend Moon introducing the idea of the human portion of responsibility is really epoch-making. It's really revolutionary. That one concept, he said, is really, really incredible. And Habakkuk obviously didn't understand that. And so he's saying, you know, God, you know, when are you going to get rid of all this evil? And when it's actually our responsibility to get rid of that evil by starting with ourselves and to perfect our own character, grow our own character to completion, so that we can live according to God's word, and then that is where it starts. That's where it starts.
I think also, I mean, those of us who have been part of the unification movement for so many years, I think we kept looking for some kind of major change to happen in the world when really it does come down to us as individuals taking responsibility for ourselves, our family, our community, and spread out from there. But we're not necessarily looking for God to make the major change, but the major change comes within me, and I'm the major change that actually has to happen. Major
changes do happen in the world. They certainly have happened, and there's no longer a country on the map called the Soviet Union. Union of Soviet Socialist Republics is no longer on the map. Yugoslavia is no longer on the map. The German Democratic Republic is no longer on the map. And I think as we go along, more names will change, disappear. New names will come on the map, on the world map. And certainly in terms of technology, things have changed, and major changes do happen. But I think those happen primarily because God and True Father are doing their spiritual work on the world. And of course, our job is to praise them, to glorify them, and to set the conditions whereby they can do even more work in the spirit world. And I think that's how major changes for the good happen. And one way we do that is, I think, by celebrating the 8 major holidays that Father established. Because those are real. Of course, always we are praising Father and glorifying Him, but really the 8 major holidays are the major times of the year when we do that. And we have one coming up now in a couple of weeks on the 16th of February. That will be True God's Day and the holy births of a true parent, Sun Myung Moon and Jesus. Right now we're preparing for that, and of course for the registration blessing, the Book of Life registration blessing that is happening on the 28th of this month. So I think through those conditions, major changes will happen in the world. But as Kyle said, we ourselves have to change also. We ourselves have to change in order to increase the base of goodness in the world. Increase the base of goodness in the world, don't you think?
Well, we have seen how through the conditions that have been set here, that there on the microcosm, that there have been major changes on the macrocosm. Whether it was the spiritual liberation of the infants or the democide. Each time we have these events that we do here locally and together with brothers and sisters around the world, we see that the world is changing.
Yes.
That the consciousness is changing, the awareness is changing in the world, and even things like having Trump actually become the president. I think it was based on conditions that were made on the microcosm.
That's
so, I mean, it is a very exciting time.
Yes. Yes. All right. Shall we go to our Cheonsonggyung Rima now? In the Cheonsonggyung, I'm in the True Family and the Family Pledge, and I'm on page 2405. God's ideal of creation was the ideal of parents. That is how important parents are. Since parents are the central beings of heaven, they are to be the king and queen. Ta-da!
Ta-da! Here we are.
There we go. Yes. They are to be the king and queen. The king and queen begin from parents on earth. They are the center of everything. They are the center of heaven on earth and of the heavenly world. The kingship of heaven is inner, and the kingship on earth is outer. It is the same relationship as the relationship between a person's mind and body. Because of that, mind and body become one. Ultimately, the ideal of creation, the purpose of all of heaven and earth, is to establish a family centered on parents. A family unit is formed from the unity of three: a true man and woman, the true couple, and true children. This is just like a formula. They cannot be broken up by another, nor can they separate. Why is that? No matter how great a power is applied, it cannot break apart a family that has become one, centered. Doesn't want to go to the next page. Let me go to the next page here. Okay, there we go. Centered on true love. Even God himself cannot. That entity is one for eternity. It is absolutely one. So here we have the parents being king and queen. And what do kings and queens do?
Make little princes and princesses.
Of course, they do that, but they also wear crowns.
You do.
They do wear crowns. I know I've heard some people say, I don't care, I'm all right, but with Hyung and the second king and all that, but I don't feel comfortable wearing a crown. There's still some people saying that. But right here it is. The king and queen begin from the parents on earth. Since parents are the central beings of heaven, they are to be the king and queen. And it talks about the inner kingship and the outer kingship, right? The kingship in heaven is inner, and the kingship on earth is outer. Well, the kingship of heaven, of course, is a true Father. He's the King of Kings, and the outer kingship, the kingship on earth, is the second king. So it's the unity between those two that really creates the central point of the providence right now. So that's why we're talking about micro and macro. What happens at the central point then spreads out horizontally to the macrocosm. And so every time, like this video, some kind
That's
of
right, yeah.
and then the light comes down, and then it hits a point, and then goes
That's right.
out across horizontally. That's what's happening. That's what's happening.
I think we've experienced that, especially since September 23rd, with the installment of Our True Mother, and we feel that how strong God is able to have a presence now on Earth. That we have that connection between the Heavenly King and our true Father and in the spiritual world, and our King and Queen here on Earth. It's just it's very much alive, and it's very, very, very strong.
A newspaper in Allentown, Pennsylvania, has an article this morning in which they describe us as a small Christian sect in eastern Pennsylvania. But they mention the king's name.
Excellent.
Yes. It's not a positive article. It's actually talking about the Republican candidate for governor, Paul Mango's interview with the king, and characterizing this interview as racist and homophobic. And so you can understand, you can imagine where it goes from there. But anyway, it mentions us.
Did they spell his name right?
They spelled his name correctly.
Well, that's
yes.
good.
That says interview with Hyung Moon, the leader of a Christian sect based in eastern Pennsylvania. I didn't say small. I'm sorry. I correct myself. And just a Christian sect based in eastern Pennsylvania. So that is is spreading out. It's spreading out horizontally.
Well, that's on the physical plane here. I think from the spiritual plane, I think there's a huge understanding of who we are and what we're doing. So if we just look from our physical eyes, we may not be so impressed, but I think from a spiritual point of view, there's an earthquake and a volcano and all this stuff going on here, really shaking things up in a very, very strong way.
Okay, good. Yeah, and I think, by the way, Paul Mango's people called us and said that we are not racist. We are not racist. She says they are standing. Paul Mango's people are standing together with Pastor Moon, and that we agree on all major issues. So they are taking care to maintain the relationship.
Excellent.
But I thought it was a kind of cute, frankly. I mean, compared to what we've seen in the past, it's kind of cute.
That's good.
Yes, it's as far as persecution goes, it's a very. I think cute is the word to use. All right.
Well, I think we're at a time when where if Satan tries to hit goodness, evil actually gets damaged.
Yes, yes.
So any press like that is good press.
Yes, yes, and it does accurately state our position on homosexuality.
Yeah.
And racist, I think, is a kind of an empty charge. But they also noted that he has. They said an assault rifle. He called me and I talked to the reporter. I told him it's a pistol. But anyway, he did it.
A very big pistol.
Yes, a very big. I told him it was an AR pistol. But anyway, that didn't make it into the story. They insisted on calling it an assault rifle, or I think that's what they called it. All right. Anyway, let's take a break now. And we'll come back now with our news. Of course, today the big news is the State of the Union address, and we'll be spending quite a bit of time on that. We'll see you in a minute.
really there was a lot of things I really liked about Diella from the very beginning. I loved her passion, the way she sang with the church, the loyalty she had to her parents, and I really wanted somebody who's loyal to True Father, and I knew if she's loyal to her parents, that's a good sign. And the one memory I really have, it really helped me really decide I really want to get blessed to her, was she said that I'd always be second, and she'd always put God before me. And I knew if she was willing to put God before me, I could fully trust her. And that was something that really moved me to, I knew at that point, I wanted to get blessed to her.
Okay, so at first when we met, we completely put each other in boxes, the famous box. And I don't know, I was praying and praying and praying, and I was just not sure in the beginning. We both weren't, and but we just continued talking, and but for some reason it just didn't seem to work, because we were just too focused on ourselves, I think. So, but I kept praying and praying, and then one day I was very frustrated, and I even talked with my mom, and she told me, you know what, Diella, I can see he really loves God. And if he loves God, he can fully love you. And I think that's what I needed to hear, and from that moment on, everything changed.
Welcome back to the King's Report for Wednesday, January 31st, 2018. Tim Elder and Kyle Toffee, and for the second King of Chanuguk, Hyung Jin Moon. And I want to first go through the headlines that Drudge has that related to the State of the Union, and then after that, I want to go through the Washington Times article on the speech itself, and then we'll continue out from there. And here it says, Pelosi frowns at call for working together. Now, I was trying to decide how to describe this expression that she has in this photograph. I was thinking it looks like someone who's eating sushi for the first time. Or maybe someone who's trying to, anyway, she's obviously got something in her mouth that doesn't agree with her. I think that just judging from the face, if I were to see this face out of context, I would think that this lady is trying to eat something, maybe a sour grape or something that she wants to spit it out, but she can't because she's in polite company. I don't know. That's the impression that I get from this photograph.
I thought maybe she was readjusting her dentures.
Okay, maybe that's true. Okay, maybe that's what she was doing. Gutierrez triggered by USA chants, flees the House chamber. A Black Dems stone-faced reaction to news of low black unemployment. Hollywood live tweets. CNN says Melania wearing white to protest her husband. Is it, not just fake news, but creative news.
It is very creative. She came out looking like a queen,
yes.
Actually. She came out, and the applause didn't stop. She came out and she looked like a first lady. She looked like a queen. And how anybody would come up with a headline like Melania wearing white to protest her husband is absurd.
It's absurd. It illustrates CNN how far they have fallen. ABC News says it was divisive, gloomy, and sad. President scorches NFL protests the day before the Super Bowl. Praises America's heroes, says we 129 times, vows optimism as more fights loom. Uncharacteristically conciliatory. Goodwin, it's his party now. Bernie response, tech glitch, we'll be back momentarily. Was Kennedy drooling? Of course, Kennedy one of the Kennedy descendants, giving the Democratic response.
I want to go back to the ABC News, saying that this was divisive, gloomy, and sad.
We'll get there in a minute. Just a minute. We're covering over now, and then we'll get into it. Yeah.
Okay.
CBS Trump shows heart. CBS says 75% approve of the speech, and then third longest State of the Union in history. New York Post says upbeat Trump calls for unity. State of the schmoozen. Trump warns North Korea's reckless pursuit of nuke weapons could soon threaten the USA. And a North Korean dissident makes a show-stopping appearance. He actually raised up his crutches because he had walked for a very long while on crutches in order to escape from North Korea. Yeah, well, let's see how divisive and gloomy and sad it really was by reading through the Washington Times story. All right? Okay. Let's see just how gloomy and sad it was. President Trump took a victory lap on the economy Tuesday night in his first State of the Union address, declaring that his tax cuts have sparked an American revival and reached out to Democrats to work on problems from immigration to infrastructure. Let's see, where's the rest of their story? What's happening here with the Washington Times stories? Oh, I see. I have to click on the headline. All right. And we'll be back momentarily here. So already you can see that it was not so gloomy or sad. After a turbulent first year, I'm sorry, this is our new American moment. Now they're giving me all kinds of ads. Now, this is our new American moment, Mr. Trump told Congress in a primetime address. There has never been a better time to start living the American dream. After a turbulent first year in which he often clashed with congressional Democrats, Mr. Trump appealed to liberal lawmakers to compromise on issues such as his major proposal on immigration and border security, providing a path to citizenship for 1.8 million legal immigrant dreamers. Not too long ago, it was 800,000. I don't know where the editors came from. Spending $25 billion to build a border wall and enacting other immigration restrictions. Failure to reach a deal could prompt a partial government shutdown next week. And let's see what else it says here. Struggling communities, especially immigrant communities, will also be helped by immigration policies that focus on the best interests of American workers and American families, Mr. Trump said. So tonight I am extending an open hand to work with members of both parties, Democrats and Republicans, to protect our citizens of every background, color, and creed. The president also announced he has signed an executive order that will keep open the high-security military detention center at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, reversing a decision by President Barack Obama in 2009 to close the prison. Gitmo is still open with 41 alleged terrorist detainees because Congress refused to go along with Mr. Obama's order. As part of that order, Mr. Trump said he is directing Defense Secretary James Mattis to re-examine U.S. military detention policy. In a long-awaited move, Mr. Trump outlined a $1.5 trillion plan to rebuild the nation's crumbling bridges and roads, using $200 billion in federal spending over a decade to spur more funding from state and local governments and private enterprise. I'm asking both parties to come together to give us the safe, fast, reliable, and modern infrastructure our economy needs and our people deserve, the president said. All aides said Mr. Trump wanted to speak from the heart about his vision for a thriving economy, lifting up all citizens. Earlier in the day, the president told journalists at the White House that he would consider it a great achievement if I could unite the country after decades of increasing partisan polarization in Washington. At least 14 Democrats, including members of the Congressional Black Caucus, boycotted the president's address. Democrats invited about 20 illegal immigrants, known as Dreamers, to attend the speech, prompting an objection from a Republican lawmaker who said Capitol Police should check IDs and arrest anyone in the U.S. illegally. I don't think that happened, though. No. And Mr. Trump strode to the speaker's rostrum. As he went there, he was in a position that any president would relish, riding a strong economy that he credited to his slashing of regulations and taxes, and the full impact of his tax cuts is about to show up in workers' paychecks over the next few weeks. Mr. Trump's address underscored the importance of the economy for his party and for him in his critical midterm election year. The president's job approval ratings are still relatively weak, 38% in Gallup, 43% in Rasmussen, although voters give him higher marks for his handling of the economy. Seated in the gallery with First Lady Melania Trump were 14 guests of the White House to help illustrate the president's themes, including a couple who adopted a child suffering from opioid addiction, the parents of two girls who were murdered by MS-13, and the notorious Central American gang that is increasing its U.S. presence because of immigration from its native lands. The president, with a less combative tone than he often takes on social media, told Congress that he wanted to discuss what kind of future we are going to have and what kind of nation we are going to be, all of us together as one team, one people, and one American family. Americans love their country, Mr. Trump said, and they deserve a government that shows them the same love and loyalty in return. But the president's agenda this year, reforming the immigration system, rebuilding infrastructure, and beefing up the military, will be complicated by hardening of partisan lines ahead of the midterms. On North Korea, Mr. Trump offered no new prescriptions for the regime of Kim Jong-un and its nuclear weapons. He said North Korea's reckless pursuit of nuclear missiles could very soon threaten our homeland, and vowed to continue a campaign of maximum pressure to prevent that from happening. The White House invited 3 guests connected with North Korea: Fred and Cindy Warmbier of Ohio, whose son Otto died after being severely injured in custody while studying in that country. Also in attendance was Chi Sung-ho, who escaped North Korea as a starving boy decades ago. We need only look at the depraved character of the North Korean regime to understand the nature of the nuclear threat it could pose to America and our allies, Mr. Trump said. On Iran, Mr. Trump reiterated that he is asking the Congress to address fundamental flaws in the terrible Iran nuclear deal. The president said the threats from rogue regimes, terrorist groups, and rivals such as China and Russia demonstrate the need for a stronger military. He called for an end to the dangerous defense sequester of funds and more money to modernize the U.S. nuclear arsenal. In confronting these dangers, we know that weakness is the surest path to conflict, and unmatched power is the surest means to our defense, he said. As part of our defense, we must modernize and rebuild our nuclear arsenal, hopefully never having to use it, but making it so strong and powerful that it will deter any acts of aggression. He added, perhaps someday in the future there will be a magical moment when the countries of the world will get together to eliminate their nuclear weapons. Unfortunately, we are not there yet. Building on a move he made at the Department of Veterans Affairs last year, the president called on Congress to empower every cabinet secretary with the authority to reward good workers and to remove federal employees who undermine the public trust or fail the American people. Mr. Trump also spoke of more funding for vocational training and to reform prisons, although he offered no specifics. In summing up his first year in office, Mr. Trump told Congress the state of our union is strong because our people are strong. The president said of terrorists, when possible, we annihilate them. When necessary, we must be able to detain and question them. But we must be clear, terrorists are not merely criminals, they are unlawful enemy combatants. And when captured overseas, they should be treated like the terrorists they are. Previously, Mr. Trump said, we have foolishly released hundreds of dangerous terrorists only to meet them again on the battlefield, including the ISIS leader al-Baghdadi. He said Congress must provide all necessary power to detain terrorists wherever we chase them down. So that was the Washington Times take on the speech. You watched it last night. What was your impression of it, Kyle?
I think it was extremely inspiring and upbeat and positive. When I saw the headline of ABC News saying that it was divisive, gloomy, and sad, it was anything but. I was wondering whether they were just watching a rerun of an old State of the Union address by Obama or something. Because the one I saw was a very strong and confident Trump, and the general spirit in the House was very exciting. That there had been accomplishments, and he outlined what his basic agenda is going forward. You did get the sense that the Democrats there were actively sitting there and pouting like a spoiled child, or a sports team that's being crushed out on the field. The looks on the people's faces just were like really negative. And I was wondering, are they are they thinking of themselves and their party, or are they thinking about America? You know, when they talk about the economy, when they're talking about immigration, all these different issues, they're looking at the survival of their own party as opposed to what is good for America, what is where are we going, and what is positive and what is negative. So I think it was very clear, and you know, the headline there on Drudge was that, you know, CBS was saying 72% of the polled said that it was a good speech, and I would concur there. But I would imagine that maybe maybe 5% of the CBS reporters and commentators and so forth, only probably 2% would have said it was a good speech. So, I mean, we've got a mainstream media that's trying to portray this as very negative and gloomy and divisive, but actually, consistently throughout the speech, Trump was looking over to the Democrats and asking them to come on, let's get on board on these issues here, and this is good for America. But they sat there stony-faced and resistive. So it was.
Well, they're taking a gamble, and I think they're going to lose that gamble.
I think they will, because the American people will watch us. The 75% that watched this speech, I think it would probably be actually more, that watched the speech and were inspired and could get behind the vision, because Trump is talking about a better America, a stronger America, a healthier America. There are some issues that he brought up that were you don't understand why anybody would really oppose that. For example, when he talked about cancer patients being able to, that those who are in, like stage 4 of, that they could try other modalities or experimental things without going through having to leave the country in order to try some of these things that others have, that they themselves would like to try. That there are too many roadblocks by the FDA and things. That just seems to make sense. Why would people reject that? But it became obvious, just as you watched the speech, just how especially the Democrats were just sitting there stonewalling, and you realize that he's still up against a lot. But Trump has the same ability to talk to the people that Reagan had. Reagan always, whenever he had issues with Congress, he would bring his case to the people, and I think Trump has that same ability to do that.
Let's look at this CBS News poll. Of course, caveat, we know what polls do. They distort. But anyway, let's look at what they say. 3 in 4 Americans who tuned in to President Trump's State of the Union address tonight approved of the speech he gave. Just a quarter disapproved. And how did the speech make you feel? 8 in 10 Americans who watched tonight felt the president was trying to unite the country rather than divide it. 2/3 said the speech made them feel proud, though just a third said it made them feel safer. Fewer said the speech made them feel angry or scared. A party identification, but as often the case, the State of the Union addresses, the people who watched tonight's speech leaned more towards the president's own party, at least compared to Americans overall. In the latest CBS national poll released earlier this month, 24% of Americans identified as Republicans. Among those who watched tonight's speech, tonight's address, that percentage was 42%, bolstering the overall approval of the address. So 42% were Republicans among the people who said they watched. 25% were Democrats and 33% were independents. And while Republicans approved of the speech, most Democrats who tuned in did not. 9 in 10 Republicans said the speech made them feel proud, while just over half of Democrats said it made them feel angry. Independents who watched this speech, nearly half of whom counted themselves as the president's supporters, tended to approve of the speech and said it made them feel proud. After hearing the State of the Union address, most viewers think the policies they heard tonight would help them personally, though Democrats disagree. Policies you heard in the speech on some of the specific issues Mr. Trump touched upon. Most viewers had a favorable opinion of what Mr. Trump had to say about the nation's infrastructure, immigration, and national security. And after hearing him speak tonight, 54% of speech watchers gave him a lot of credit for the current state of the nation's economy, up from 51% before they watched the State of the Union. This is based on 1,178 interviews conducted on the internet of U.S. residents who watched the State of the Union address. Panelists were previously interviewed on January 29 to 30, 2018, to indicate whether they planned to watch the address and if they were willing to be re-interviewed after the address. Questions asked during the initial interview have the note asked before the SOTU address. The margin of error is a plus or minus of 3.1%. All right, so that was the CBS poll there. Let's take a short break, and we'll come back with more on the State of the Union address after this.
It's a blessing of marriage, but you know, the blessing of marriage is supposed to be full of joy unspeakable.
I mean, the blessing itself is amazing. I mean, it was a very special experience. I mean, it was the biggest day of my life. And we had all our family there. People came from all the way from Colorado. This one couple even from Colorado came like last minute. They took like a bus to get here, and I just felt like so much love from friends, family. I felt God's love. I mean, I just couldn't believe that I was getting blessed. You know, like that day finally came, and I was just totally peaceful and excited, and it was an amazing experience.
Well, for me, there was one particular moment. First of all, the whole ceremony, I did not have one moment the feeling it was about us. Mm-hmm. It was literally about true Father giving. He was the walking God on earth, giving us the blessing which we all did not, we don't deserve, basically. And it was just so beautiful to receive that, and I felt a lot of love. And there was also a moment where Hyung was saying, "True Father is smiling," and I think he said that 3 times, and I could see that, not physically, but I could just feel him being happy, which really calmed me down, made me peaceful and happy, and it was beautiful.
Welcome back to the King's Report for Wednesday, January 31st, 2018. Tim Elder and Kyle Toffey this morning, and for the second king of Cheongguk, Hyung Jin-moon. I want to go through some of the headlines now on a Breitbart that relate to the State of the Union speech. Americans are dreamers too, State of Trump's Union. It's a hit. Viewers love a speech and snap poll. Dems shocking disrespect. A sit. Check phones as president praises vets. POTUS goes for unity. POTUS, of course, being president of the United States. A triumphant North Korean defector star of the night. Trump highlights American heroes, victims of illegal alien crimes. Praises faith and family, not government and bureaucracy. Our motto is in God we trust. Gitmo is open for business. Cruz very, very strong speech. Watch Dems boo during chain migration remarks. Where's the woke? Kennedy gives Dem response. Sloppy Joe, what was on his mouth? Shock posed in front of car. McAuliffe, Trump brought all these people in basically for props. Fashion notes, Melania Trump brings glamour to Soto address and Dior suit. Winning celebrities melt down. I'm sure they did.
They did.
I'm surprised there's still anyone left in Hollywood. They should have melted by now. Breitbart fact check live wire. Yes, black unemployment hit lowest ever. Donnie Daka, Trump sells amnesty, says it puts Americans first. Cory Booker on Soto, ugly fear-mongering. Trump used religion patriotism to divide. Trump, we proudly stand for the national anthem. POTUS signs order to keep Guantanamo prison open. Savage, Pelosi's white bashing will result in deaths, violence. Crying Corey, triggered by Gosar's call to arrest aliens at Soto. But Goodell, though, says, we are proud of NFL players of social activism. So anyway, that was Breitbart's headlines. I want to do a story in InfoWars where that points out that, of course, this time President Trump talked about a new American moment. And InfoWars points out that Hillary Clinton, in a speech that she made some years ago, also used a similar phrase, but it's different. The context is very different, and I think we need to understand this. Trump's new American moment, a sharp contrast to Hillary's globalism. Both used phrase a new American moment, but only Trump focused it on the American families. Says President Trump wasn't the first to use the phrase new American moment, but he was definitely the first to frame it in support of the nuclear American family as opposed to globalism. In 2010, Hillary Clinton also used the phrase new American moment in a speech to the Council on Foreign Relations. But look at the context. And here's Hillary's speech. So let me say it clearly, the United States can, must, and will lead in this new century. Indeed, the complexities and connections of today's world have yielded a new American moment, a moment when our global leadership is essential, even if we must often lead in new ways, a moment when those things that can make us who we are as a nation, our openness and innovation, our determination and devotion to core values, have never been more needed. This is a moment that must be seized through hard work and bold decisions to lay a foundation for lasting American leadership for decades to come. But now this is no argument for America to go it alone. Far from it. The world looks to us because America has the reach and resolve to mobilize the shared effort need to solve the problems on a global scale in defense of our own interests, but also as a force for progress. In this, we have no rival. For the United States, global leadership is both a responsibility and an unparalleled opportunity. So that was Hillary in 2010. To Hillary, the new American moment meant America's absorption into a global body where U.S. interest and that of Americans always come second. But to Trump, the new American moment is America's focus on fixing its own problems, never to sacrifice its own citizens to foreign interests and multinational combines, and the belief in the individual citizen and the new family. Here's Trump. Here's how Trump said it. This, in fact, is our new American moment. There has never been a better time to start living the American dream. So to every citizen watching at home tonight, no matter where you have been or where you have come from, this is your time. If you work hard, if you believe in yourself, if you believe in America, then you can dream anything, be anything, and together we can achieve absolutely anything. So that's the contrast between Hillary and Trump using the same phrase, a new American moment. The contrast between Trump and Hillary has never been so clear. It's also ironically fitting that Hillary gave the speech to the CFR, the Council on Foreign Relations, the globalist network of international elitists who secretly vie for influence over the U.S. government. The CFR, which along with the Bilderberg Group and the Trilateral Commission formed the pillars of the deep state, has been highly critical of President Trump. The deep state has a very wise and shrewd adversary, the man in the Oval Office, said Judge Andrew Napolitano. It is the first time in the modern era that the man in the Oval Office has been an adversary of the deep state rather than a tool of it. And that was in Napolitano. I think that was a good for InfoWars to break that down, to point out that contrast between Hillary and Trump, the different moments, I guess, different moments.
Yeah, it was a very strong statement where he was saying that, it's not government that's the solution, and that really it's family and faith, and in God we trust. It's a 180 difference.
Right.
I think, the problem is that from the more Democrat viewpoint, the government's supposed to offer the solutions and solve the problems, whereas really Trump's saying that it's individuals together with their families and their faith that will bring about the changes necessary. And at the moment is that we recognize that and understand the value of that faith, of that relationship with God, and the importance of nuclear families.
Yes. And what does the Cheongguk family pledge say? Family pledge. Who is the owner of Cheongguk?
The owner of Cheongguk.
Our families.
Our families.
Yes. Each verse in the family pledge begins with our families, the owner of Cheongguk. In Korean, it's actually a little bit reversed. Cheongguk 주인, 우리 가정은. That is to say that the subject of the sentence is 우리 가정, our families.
Right.
And then there's an adjective phrase before that says the owners of Cheongguk. And so that adjective phrase modifies the subject, which is our family. So it's very clear in the family pledge that the owners of Cheongguk are the families, our families. So then, who do we go with? And do we go with Hillary, who wants to destroy the nuclear family and have the government educate all of our children, indoctrinate all of our children, and pull them away from their parents, and to create a society where the UN agenda determines U.S. education and so forth? Or do we go with President Trump, who emphasizes the nuclear family? I think the choice is obvious, and I think that is one reason why President Trump is a providential figure right now.
Right.
Yes. No matter what those folks may say, he is clearly a providential figure who is on the macro sphere, steering America and steering the world towards Cheongguk.
And I think that's also why he won the election, and why he's actually much more popular than the Gallup polls dictate. Because the Gallup polls, if you rely on them, then President Trump would not have been President Trump.
That's right.
So when they say that he's not all that popular, I don't think that's correct. I think, even though the mainstream media has been hammering President Trump, still the truth that he speaks rings to the heart of people. And I think because basically most people just do want to be able to work and take care of their families. That's really the majority of the core of America. And so President Trump was talking to the core values of America, and I think that rings true to people's hearts and spirit as he is, as he was giving his speech. So it was really a wonderful speech. And also the other big thing that I noticed is that he kept saying "we."
129 times.
129 times, which is over about 1.5 times a minute. He's using the word "we" as he, you and I, together we are doing this, and including the American people in this making America great. I remember the Obama speeches always seemed to be, I did this, I did that, and I'm doing this, which was not as inclusive. But really, President Trump was using the we and including people. And also, if we look at the guests that he was introducing, these were not necessarily sad cases, even though there were some pretty sad situations out there. But he was really picking up heroes, everyday heroes. Not whether it was the little boy or whatever. It was just very inspiring, and he was speaking to the core of American people. And I think they're probably more than 75% of the people that heard this speech really did think it was a good speech.
One of the members of the House of Representatives walked out of the speech, Representative Luis Gutierrez, who is a very strong immigration supporter. He walked out of Trump's speech, and the Washington Examiner says this is an example of how progressives write off the bipartisanship permanently. I actually object even to the use of the word progressive, but anyway, they're obstructionists. But anyway, the Democrats spent more time sitting than standing as President Trump delivered the State of the Union. Toward the end, when the crowd filled the chamber with chants of USA, 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 Representative Luis Gutierrez, a Democrat of Illinois, Illinois' got a lot of problems. I guess this is one of them. Hoisted a metaphorical progressive banner as he marched out of the chamber in protest. Trump reached across the aisle repeatedly during the hour-and-a-half address. Progressives like Gutierrez didn't even hide the fact that they were slapping it away. Not all Democrats were so sullen, though. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer clapped a couple of times, and some senators in his conference even stood for the occasional applause line. No one can blame them for not cheering louder. After all, it is the job of the minority to check the majority. The resistance from Gutierrez and company was different. Normally, progressives like trillion-dollar infrastructure projects, but they would rather rip up any check that comes with Trump's signature. Historically, progressives have championed a permanent solution for the so-called dreamers, immigrants brought to this country illegally as children, but they are already balking at any amnesty deal. Generally, progressives are willing to negotiate, at least at the margins of a Republican agenda, but they see anything less than a complete and total scorched earth strategy as unacceptable. And I think that's why they're going to lose.
I do too. I mean, I forget when the first use of the shovel-ready jobs were back in the Obama administration. Everybody seemed to like the idea that we would be fixing the infrastructure of America, but I don't think too much of the infrastructure was really fixed. I think the money went to,
Iran.
Went to a lot of different places and different things. But I think Trump, his focus on having, our infrastructure is in need of repair, and I think that would be money well spent. Where the government is working on projects that will improve transportation and other institutions that need to be strengthened. So why the Democrats at this point all of a sudden don't like the idea of trillions of dollars being spent on infrastructure, it's only political.
Well, only $200 billion of that is federal funding over the next 10 years.
Right.
And Trump is bringing in the private sector.
And also the local states. And
states, yes, as well.
Yeah. So it's a partnership.
Yes.
And that's important.
I think that would be what the Democrats would object to, that they want the central government, the federal government, to do it all. Well, maybe some states, but the idea of involving private enterprise in public works projects, I think, is something that Democrats don't like. But I think it's something that America needs to get to, because the public, the more private enterprise is involved in a project, the more efficient it's going to be, I think.
Yeah, if you look at the early railroad, which this area of the country actually pioneered, the early railroad was not a government project. It was business people
Yes.
getting together and accomplishing something that people thought was impossible. And up in Honesdale, right here in Wayne County, was where all this started.
Yes.
Just trying to get coal from one place to another. And then
Actually, they built a canal first.
they built a canal.
Yes,
And-
with private money.
And then the canal became obsolete
Yes, it became obsolete.
when they put in the train systems.
But if it had been a government project, obsolete or not, it would have continued to run.
It would. It'd be running today.
It'd be running today.
But
Yes. The
the
Delaware and Hudson Canal Company was the first company in America to be capitalized at $1 million.
and that's when $1 million was $1 million.
That was a lot.
That was.
And so that means that the largest company in America, the highest capitalized, most capitalized company in America, was headquartered in Honesdale, Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania was
Wayne
right
County.
here in Wayne County.
Yes. I think of that every time I go to Honesdale. It's a very different situation today. But the more you involve, private companies in public works, the better you're going to be. The more wealth you're going to be creating instead of just using taxpayer money for that. Yes, but so I think that's why the Democrats are looking askance at the whole project of for infrastructure building. But President Trump, Donald Trump, he's a builder.
He is.
He knows about construction.
He does.
Yeah, and he knows how to get it done. And so I hope that over the next 7 years, he will in fact get it done. It's one thing to say it in a speech, but it's another thing to get it done.
He did make the point that now it takes to build the Empire State Building. It took a year, and right now it's taking 10 years to approve any project that people want, and that he wants to get that down to 2 years or 1 year, to be able to get things off the ground, because the government has gotten in the way of things rather than being a partner to promote good positive change.
Yeah, America has become really bogged down in this whole bureaucracy, and places like the EPA and other places, other agencies really are strangling America. Let's see other headlines related to this. Ted Cruz has said it was a very, very strong speech, but Democrats booed during the chain migration remarks. GOP Senator Ted Cruz says, "I thought it was a very, very strong speech and a strong night for the president." He's speaking here on speaking to Hannity. Following Donald Trump's first State of the Union address, Senator Ted Cruz gave Trump high marks for the speech. Cruz applauded Trump for highlighting the various personal stories of his invited guests and called it a strong night for Trump. The president did an incredible job highlighting the parents of those who have lost their children to MS-13 and violent illegal aliens, Cruz said, highlighting heroes, whether police officers and Coast Guardsmen or first responders across the country. And the president did a tremendous job overall, focusing on jobs, on wages going up, on the historic tax cut. I thought it was a very, very strong speech and strong night for the president, he added. Here, as Breitbart has a video on where we can watch the Democrats boo the president during the speech when he was talking about chain migration. Tuesday, during the State of the Union address, when President Trump said his immigration plan ends chain migration, some Democrats booed. Loud boos could be heard after Trump said, under the current broken system, a single immigrant can bring in virtually unlimited numbers of distant relatives. He added, under our plan, we focus on the immediate family by limiting sponsorships to spouses and minor children. Yes. Okay. Anything else you'd like to say before we go to break?
No, it was very clear as they would pan the House that the Democrats just didn't want to give any kind of inclination that what Trump was offering was at all logical or good for America, because really, Trump's solution is, you want this, I want this, and this is where I think we should go, and they wouldn't accept that. They're stonewalling.
All right, let's take a break, and we'll come back with some of the other news of the day after this.
We kind of like lost the sense of like why we were doing this, like why we were going through this, and kind of felt rushed because we only knew each other for about 2 months actually.
Only 1 month.
1 month?
Yeah.
Okay, 1 month before the matching ceremony we had. And so yeah, we started having a hard time. And so like for me, like, you get kind of fooled by Hollywood, and I think that's where my biggest trouble was, because I didn't know how to be an actual good husband at that time and how to like really work with a woman before. So Hyun really gave me clear direction. Basically, he just said, like, you have to be strong. You have to be, confident in yourself and not be so worried about yourself. You have to be confident in who you are, kind of thing.
The more I had to wait, the more attacking was getting much more intense, and I was really struggling at the time. So, and I could feel Satan was just trying to attack me, playing with my emotions, making me really complicated and confused. And it got to the point where it turned me very negative about the blessing. So, and that time I knew the way to overcome this situation was, just holding on to God and His words, because I don't think I'll be ever to overcome this situation alone. That time I really felt I really need God by my side. So I started doing conditions, prayer and Rima. And through that, I really realized, God was really straightforward to me, and just, sending these messages to me, telling me to be thankful. I realized, God really wanted this blessing to happen.
Welcome back to the King's Report for Wednesday, January 31st, 2018. Tim Elder and Kyle Toffee. And for the second king of Cheongguk, Hyung Jin-moon, who we believe is maybe on his way back now, I guess. I'm thinking.
It would be nice. We miss him here.
I think looking at his Instagram photos, he seems to have broken camp at the Grand Canyon. And, I guess I'm not sure. Doesn't mean he's necessarily heading back, but I think he's probably heading back. I'm not sure, though. Anyway, he will come when he comes, and as God guides him. Let's look at some of the other news. Another important piece of news piece of information in the news is this whole memo. The memo.
The memo.
And I think everybody knows what the memo refers to. It is a 4-page memo, composed by the House Intelligence Committee, the Republican staff. and it outlines, we are told, FBI abuses of the whole FISA system, the whole FISA court situation, the secret court, and how, anyway, that apparently it talks about how the dossier that was paid for by the Democratic National Committee and Hillary Clinton, so basically a political hit piece, was was submitted to the FISA court, and the FISA court was not fully informed of the background of that material, but was convinced to issue a warrant to surveil Carter Page, who was a Trump aide at the time. And other things. We don't know what's all in that 4 pages. And now the president has, the House Intelligence Committee voted on Monday to release it, and the president has 5 days from that time to decide whether or not to release it. And some speculation was that he was maybe even going to release it last night.
I think, though, someone stated, I think fairly accurately, that Trump would not do that because he really wanted for at least 24 to 48 hours the news cycle to focus on what he said at the State of the Union, and that if there had been a release of the memo, it would have sidetracked the message that he was trying to bring to the American people. So, yeah, he knows what he's doing as far as timing, and he seems to be a few steps ahead of most people.
Well, the 2 senior FBI officials have now reviewed that memo, according to Fox News, and a source familiar with the matter told Fox News, adding that the officials could not point to any factual inaccuracies. Yes. The 2 officials, one from the Bureau's Counterintelligence Division and other from the Legal Division, followed up after an initial review of the memo during a rare Sunday trip to Capitol Hill by FBI Director Christopher Wray. The House Intelligence Committee voted late Monday along party lines to release the memo, prompting a backlash from Democratic lawmakers. Top Democratic Representative Adam Schiff called it a very sad day. For them, I'm sure. President Trump has 5 working days to review the contents, but is widely expected not to block its release. After the contentious committee vote on Monday night, the source confirmed that House staffers physically took the memo over to the White House for the president. The FBI offered no comment to Fox News regarding a Bureau officials' review of the document. Senior DOJ officials told Fox News after the story first posted, however, that they disputed the characterization that no inaccuracies could be cited. Senior DOJ officials also had the opportunity to review the memo at DOJ headquarters on Monday. The Justice Department, in a January 24th letter from Assistant Attorney General Stephen E. Boyd, originally had called the Republican staff memo's release unprecedented and reckless. Boyd also stated, though we are currently unaware of any wrongdoing related to the FISA process, we agree that any abuse of that system cannot be tolerated. But DOJ officials told Fox News on Tuesday that parts of that memo are now moot, specifically the term reckless, as DOJ and FBI officials have now had the opportunity to review the document, so it's no longer reckless. Fox News is told the memo was drafted deliberately to eliminate national security information that could be damaging if viewed by individuals outside Congress. House Republicans have indicated the memo speaks to whether the unverified anti-Trump dossier was used to secure or extend surveillance warrants for Americans, including a Trump associate, referring to Carter Page. If you're interested in whether or not the dossier was used in court proceedings, whether or not it was funded by political opponents, you'll want to see the memo, Representative Trey Gowdy, Republican of South Carolina, said on Fox and Friends. The source said that FBI and Justice Department had fought tooth and nail for close to a year to avoid providing the surveillance-related records to Congress. The source said additional records provided this month after Republican Committee Chairman Devin Nunes threatened to move forward with contempt of Congress citations backed up investigators' earlier findings. The committee is in the process of lining up the remaining FBI and DOJ interviews, which are expected in early February as part of its investigation. Intelligence Committee Republicans have 2 outstanding records requests for additional texts between FBI official Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, and records documenting an April 2017 meeting between DOJ lawyer and senior special counsel prosecutor Andrew Weissman and a major media organization. The Weissman deadline was January 11. In a January 4th letter documenting his agreement with Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein to avoid contempt citations, Nunes wrote, "I understand that your office is researching records related to the details of an April 2017 meeting between DOJ Attorney Andrew Weissman, now the senior attorney for Special Counsel Robert Mueller, and the media, which will be provided to this committee by close of business Thursday, January 11, 2018. The source said the FBI and Justice Department said they wanted additional time to gather all of the Weissman's records to provide them at once. Fox News understands the committee will make a new push for the remaining Weissman records, which are related to former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort, as early as this week. Republican Representative Jim Jordan recently told Fox News, "I'm interested in anything the FBI did to leak information to further their narrative." So 5 working days, I guess, until next Monday, I guess.
Yeah.
He has until next Monday to release it. I don't know. He doesn't have to wait that long.
He doesn't. And Friday's always not a good day to release things because then it gets into the weekend.
Right.
People don't pay attention. So my guess was that maybe we could hear something as early as tomorrow, Thursday.
As early as tomorrow? Not today?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Because, really the State of the Union address really is, really should have the attention it deserved. And we need to discuss this as a nation, what Trump talked about. So I think he's going to wait one more day. I
think giving them a 1-2 punch. You don't punch once and then wait a few seconds and then punch again. It's a boom, boom.
Okay, we'll take bets.
We'll take bets. Okay, maybe
today or tomorrow.
Today or tomorrow. We're thinking yes, that he will not. Unless someone has a really strong objection, but it was the Department of Justice who is being criticized here or being investigated here. So, how much input the Department of Justice should have is in question.
Right, and also the opposition is saying that Trump is trying to destroy the DOJ. He's trying to destroy the FBI, and I think people have made it very clear that we're not talking about the rank and file here, but we're talking about very serious corruption within the seventh floor they call it.
I don't know what floor it is, but it's the swamp. It's the deep state.
It is the deep state.
Yeah, he is trying to drain the swamp, and in the process of doing that, I'm sure the FBI and Justice Department will have to change a great deal. And some people may characterize that as destroying. At the end of the process, we're still going to have a Justice Department.
Yeah.
Whether we have an FBI or not, I don't know. Cheonryu Constitution outlaws the FBI. You cannot have a nationwide investigative agency under the Cheonryu Constitution. So at some point, as Providence moves on, the FBI will disappear. Here in the New York Times this morning, it's saying that the FBI and Justice Department brace for possible release of secret memo. Bracing there. Washington, the Justice Department and FBI were bracing on Tuesday for the release of a secret memo that Republicans say shows the agencies abused their authorities to obtain a warrant to spy on former Trump campaign advisor. The White House received a copy of the memo on Monday night after Republicans in the House Intelligence Committee voted along party lines to make the information public. The top lawyers at the White House have reviewed the memo, a 3.5-page, or no longer 4 pages, 3.5, document that Democrats contend is misleading. The National Security Council, including the Senior Director for Intelligence, is reviewing the memo. President Trump, who spent Tuesday preparing for his first State of the Union address, was eager to release the memo, but the White House has not said when that might happen. There are no current plans to release the House Intelligence Committee memo. Sarah Huckabee Sanders, the White House press secretary, said on Tuesday night, the president has not seen or been briefed on the memo or reviewed its contents. I guess he may be doing that even as we speak right now.
Might be.
Yeah. Christopher A. Wray, the FBI director, and Deputy Attorney General Rod J. Rosenstein went to the White House on Monday in the hopes of getting West Wing aides to in turn persuade Representative Devin Nunes, Republican of California, and the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee to delay the vote that night, according to a current administration official and a former one who were familiar with the events. Mr. Wray and Mr. Rosenstein spoke with John F. Kelly, the president's chief of staff, but were unsuccessful. Even without having seen it, Mr. Trump, whose preferred cable channel at Fox News has focused on the memo extensively, has told people close to him that he feels strongly that the memo makes the case that FBI and the Justice Department officials acted inappropriately when they sought the highly classified warrant on October 2016 on the campaign advisor Carter Page. This is what the secret court can do, though. They can issue a secret warrant. And the person being targeted does not know about it, cannot get any legal representation, does not have an opportunity to give a defense against that. The memo drafted by Republicans on the Intelligence Committee staff is said to contend that officials from the two agencies were not forthcoming to a foreign intelligence surveillance court judge in seeking the warrant. Republicans accuse the agencies of failing to properly disclose that Democrats financed research used in the application for the warrant. People familiar with the memo said the research was assembled by a former British intelligence officer, Christopher Steele, who produced a dossier of unsubstantiated allegations about Mr. Trump. Yeah, unsubstantiated at this point has to be just called false. I mean, it's been a year and a half, 2 years. If it were going to be substantiated, it would have been substantiated by now. So these are false allegations about Mr. Trump. The memo is also said to highlight the role of Mr. Rosenstein, who authorized the renewal of the surveillance of Mr. Page in the spring of 2017. People who have read the memo say it mentions Andrew G. McCabe, the former deputy director of the FBI, who has been a target of the president and Republicans in Congress. Mr. McCabe stepped down on Monday, 24 hours after his boss went to the White House and discussed the memo,
Right.
telling people close to him that he felt pressured to do so because of a separate Justice Department Inspector General investigation. The Justice Department said in a letter last week that it knew of no wrongdoing related to the FISA process, and the department officials believe the Republican memo leaves out key facts about the case, an argument also made by Democrats. Mr. Trump has up to 5 days to decide whether to block the release for national security reasons. His aide Kelly Conway said on Tuesday that the White House took the possibility of disclosing the memo seriously. Officials at the Central Intelligence Agency and the National Security Agency were similarly concerned about the push for release the memo. They fear the precedent that would be set if sensitive information on sources or methods were to be released as part of a partisan political brawl. But, you know, these guys at CIA, at the National Security Agency, the NSA, they don't want the people to know what's going on. They don't want the American people to know what's going on.
It's true. They spend
We'll protect you. We'll, just go on about your business.
nothing to see here.
Nothing to see here.
Yeah. No, it's they're going to try to protect their own.
Right.
And but the American people have a right to know. The FBI works for the American people,
Yes.
and the Department of Justice. They're supposed to be working for the American people. They are supposed to be servants.
Yes.
But they want to control everything.
Yes.
And
And all the sources and methods that the CIA itself has disclosed, for example, all the U.S. Spies in China were rounded up and killed or imprisoned a few years back because a rogue CIA agent gave that information to the Chinese.
That's right.
And they're worried about a memo?
And they redact. They take stuff out that or black it out that stuff that you're not supposed to. That might be sensitive. So I mean, they have probably a whole bureau within the bureau that makes this stuff so that secrets don't get out. So I think it's just a lot of posturing on the Democrat side and the entrenched deep state to try to prevent this from coming out.
Meanwhile, on Capitol Hill, we have very little time left, but the House members began reviewing a separate document drafted by Documents. People familiar with that memo said it was a 10-page point-by-point rebuttal of the Republican document, including dozens of footnotes. Democrats had hoped to release their rebuttal publicly as well, but a motion to do so was voted down on Monday. Speaker Paul D. Ryan of Wisconsin, who has backed the memo's release, tried to tamp down expectations about its contents on Tuesday. In a closed-door meeting of House Republicans, Mr. Ryan implored his fellow lawmakers not to overstate the facts of the memo and urged them not to tie the contentious document to the work of the special counsel, Robert S. Mueller III, according to a person in the room. Yeah, I don't know why I'd like to have more explanation of why the Democrats' memo was not released. I would think that it would be better to have both. And give the Democrats the rope to hang themselves with, I would say. I don't know what's in that memo that the Republicans didn't want it released.
Well, if it's not released, then we don't know.
Yeah, I guess we don't know. Unless they release it, I would at least like to know why it was not released. The Intelligence Committee that's doing the Russia investigation was going to interview Steve Bannon today, but for some reason that Bannon it'll be the second time the interview, and that has been delayed. It's not going to happen today, and Dems direct outrage over Nunes memo at Speaker Ryan, rule out the leaking Schiff memo. Here, the National Review has an article on hashtag release the memo, a few thoughts. But we could go on, but the time is up for us. Just say here, Jonah Goldberg is writing here on National Review. I'm inclined to think this whole thing has been more of a cynical PR stunt, an impressive one at that, than a serious exercise on the merits. This is not to say that there aren't real abuses alluded to in the Nunes memo. I just think that ultimately the steak won't live up to the sizzle. If that turns out to be the case, it may not matter how effective the hype was in the beginning. You can have a great series of trailers building up excitement for a movie, but if the movie truly stinks, few will remember the pre-release marketing, and some will even resent it. Yeah, I kind of agree with that. We were told it was going to be jaw-dropping, that's KGB stuff, it's worse than Watergate, et cetera, et cetera. I think maybe I hope not, but I think maybe the Republicans have overplayed their hands. And we're putting their end on this, but we'll see. Anyway, we're out of time for this morning. Thank you for joining us. We always appreciate your help. Also, I want to remind people to support the King's Report and the other ministries of the Rod of Iron ministry and the whole ministry of the Second King through your contributions. You can find links below this video on how you can contribute. I ask that you give a serious consideration to doing that, because Father is calling the Second King to do greater and greater stuff, which involves increasing amounts of money. We thank you, everyone, for all your donations last year. Total income for last year was about a little over $1.2 million. The second year in a row we've hit that mark. But expenses are growing. So please consider that. All right. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. And we hope that God will be with you this week and throughout your daily activities. God bless, Godspeed, and may His kingdom come.